What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Modeling and Power Narratives podcast, where we work towards mastering empathetic navigation. I am Jordan Flowers, founder and one of the co-hosts of M.E.N, the podcast. And before we get into today, I thought it would be beneficial to make an introduction video for those who have followed us from the beginning, as well as those newcomers who may want to see how things came to fruition and what it is we do as a collective for M.E.N, the podcast. But before we get into today about M.E.N, the podcast, I want to give shout out to my dear friend Marcus and MarKicks for making this podcast available. Obviously, I'll talk about it every episode and what he's doing on his end in terms of our partnership and everything. But we want to give another shout out to him because season 2 was as much of a success, is a success as of now, due to his efforts and all of his support in terms of what he's been able to do for us as podcast members, with helping us out financially and with some equipment and things of that nature to get this stuff off the ground. So we want to give a shout out to him and the MarKicks brand. Get at him for all your exclusive sneaker needs and shoe pre-orders. Like I said, I'm gonna give it up with him this December for my sneakerheads. You know, it's a lot of nice cops that happen during December, a lot of nice shoe drops that happen. So make sure you tap in with my boy and his shoe business. I will have the link for all of his social media and how to do his pre-orders with his website and all of that nature down in the description. But I wanted to make a little intro video in terms of what M.E.N the podcast is, how it came to be about, and all of that nature and all of that stuff that went into where we are today. But before M.E.N the podcast, there was just M.E.N, right? Speaking about modeling and power narratives, it came about in 2019. In 2019, I was going through a lot of rough stuff in my life. Injuries, some relationship issues, a lot of things that was going wrong in schooling. It was just a lot of like transitional pieces for me in terms of like moving on in my life and just having to deal with adversity, real adversity, at that time. So, and to that point, obviously, you guys know I'm in the psychology field by now, or if you don't know, I am in the psychology and mental health field. So, with the help of my dear friend Sharita, I knew I wanted to do something with M.E.N, right, in terms of like destigmatizing the mental health and all the things that were, all the stigmas around mental health for us men and getting the help that we needed. So we came up with modeling and power narratives. That was just kind of a little acronym. I told her I wanted an acronym for this thing, but at the time that sounded like the coolest thing ever. So, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it at the time. Had no kind of clue what I wanted to do with modeling power narratives. So kind of sat on that while I was going through my self-growth journey for over the next couple of years. But that's where it came from in terms of like the acronym itself. And so the podcast didn't come about until 2022. So we're sitting for about 3 years on this modeling power narratives thing. And this whole time I'm just kind of going through some self-growth, some things that I need to work on, some self-elevation, some things that I wanted to elevate myself as a person during this time. So I had, at this time, in the beginning of 2022, I had no intentions of starting a podcast or any prior knowledge of it. And what happened was one of our co-hosts, Trey, for those who are joining and those who have been following us from the beginning, Trey, me and him were going back and forth this one time on the couch in Quincy, Illinois, where we went to school at. And we were just going through some man-to-man conversation about just some of the things he was dealing with. I was giving him a little bit of advice, and we were just going back and forth, and him giving me advice and just kind of seeing where each other was coming from in terms of the things, the similar nature of some of the things that we were going through at the time in our lives. And so he came up with this idea, hey man, we should start a podcast. And initially I didn't take it seriously, at all. I was one of those guys, if you know me, I'm on Twitter 24/7. And so, all those people that give people flack about like, putting the mics in your face and really not talking about anything, or just, just people that's just starting podcasts for the fun of it, which I'm all for as well. But it was just getting a bad rap, and I kind of fell into that too. Like, I don't think they would want to hear what we got to talk about. But it was Trey's idea, and at the time, like I said, I didn't really take anything serious at that time. But it was also a very, very weird time for me because I was just getting out of school. I really didn't have anything going on at that particular time. I was trying to find an internship, but outside of that, I had a lot of like free time. And so I was like, well, who would want to, at first, like I said, I'm still kind of doubting it. Like, who would want to talk, or who would want to listen to this 2020 or this 22-year-old kid from Omaha, like, and what we got to talk about. But I knew modeling and power narratives and just all the things that, I thought back to that time, like, man, if I want to create this platform, man, and all the things that I've been dreaming about, just being in this position in the piece that I'm in, then this the perfect time to do it. Everything is kind of aligning. I don't got really too much going on before my internship, so let's just make it happen. And so I went ahead, and it was about, after that, just forming the podcast crew. So like I said, I had been sitting on that for about 3 years, and the initial group at that time was me and Trey. And then we added BJ, which is his roommate and one of my friends that I played football with at Quincy. So we knew he did a lot of good audio engineering and video editing. So we knew we needed somebody for that as well. So he was all on board. We contacted him, and he was all on board in terms of seeing our vision and what we wanted to do with it, and seeing my vision for what the platform I wanted to create it for us to, build upon. So the initial group was me, Trey, and BJ, and we probably sat on that for a couple of days, but it felt like something was missing to make this thing kind of like feel right. Like, we feel like I had the good pieces in place, but it felt like something was missing. So I checked, in terms of like talking to my parents, talking to a couple of my friends, like who would be another guy that I would want to add in terms of another strong male voice that kind of got the vision of what I want for my life, but it's just a little bit different from me. And the perfect person for that was our dear friend Jacob Hale. And I went ahead and gave him the call. I remember sitting in my bed and giving him the call about kind of the things, that I wanted to kind of do with the podcast, and he was immediately all in on it. He was like, man, let's do it, man. I see your vision for it, and that's kind of something that I would want to be a part of. And he was indeed the missing piece that we were looking for. So, but in terms of the crew, right, what makes us all special, speaking collectively, is that we're all different from one another in a lot of ways. And speaking just, we can start with just occupation. Trey studying to become a nurse. Hale is a civil engineer. BJ is a computer science major. We're manifesting that my boy will be able to play pro football one day, and we think that will be happening because he's hell of a football player. And for me, I'm studying to become a psychologist. So like I said, centering around what we are doing on this podcast, it wasn't kind of their forte to be doing or speaking about some of the things that we talk about, but they were all in on it. So we all come from a little bit different occupation and kind of like a frame of mind when it comes to that. But we also differ from our upbringings and our backgrounds, right? So in terms of city, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. You got Hale from Chicago, and you got Trey and BJ from St. Louis. So we got different family structures, different voices, different outlooks on life and perspectives, which is super important. What we hammer on this podcast is hearing different perspectives and having that mutual respect and understanding that it's not just one way of living. There's no one right way. It might just work for a couple of us, but there's some overall things, and there's there's an umbrella things that we can work on as a collective to tailor it to us to keep us moving forward in our lives and wanting better for ourselves. And so that's kind of like the unique structure of us, is that we all a little bit different in a lot of ways. But in terms of our mission, right? Our mission statement is that our mission is to convey messages of change through our transparency, shared in the form of personal stories, novice ideas, and dialogues centered around prominent societal issues. It's important for us, especially as young adults, to have these uncomfortable conversations. We're the next generation to start to bring life into this world. It's important that we teach the upbringing generation, or this upcoming generation, positive things. And I think that's the most important thing for us, is understanding that all of these things, when it comes to modeling and power narratives, are taught, right? And they're acted out. We're sum total of our life experiences and our learned behaviors. So understanding that and trying to teach and understanding that what we were taught and trying to unlearn some of those things and learn the positive things, right? It's kind of like the mission that we're trying to go through and go for with this podcast. But especially with this upcoming generation, we understand that even my generation, we had a lot of faults and a lot of things that we kind of had to battle through in terms of adversity with social issues and social media. And like, there's a bunch of things that's going on in the world, but this next generation is kind of starting off on a lot of rocky road in terms of like the foundation that they're coming up in, which is not a lot of stability in terms of societal and community-based things. And so we understand that it's on us to teach, not only teach, but to model out those things, these empowered narratives, and to destigmatize some of the things that center around mental health all across the board, not just men, but all across the board for all of us, and just working through some of those traumas. As we always say, though, we want to be a voice for change rather than the voice for change. We want to be a voice for change rather than the voice for change, because it takes all of us. It takes all of us to spread happiness, to teach positivity, for there to be real significant change in the world. And for us, we just want to be about having that tough dialogue, right? Those tough conversations, one conversation at a time, bouncing perspectives off of one another, getting those ideas, getting those words, understanding that we can agree to disagree, right? And still have that respect and understand where people are coming from, and just trying to comprehend it, where people are coming from, because we all have a story, and that has shaped us to do and to say and to act the way we do. But some of those things are holding us back, and some of those things that society don't teach us, we have to teach for ourselves. And I understand that, understanding that we can know the reality of society and its faults and its goods as well, but understanding that we could also teach ourselves how to unlearn some things, right? And to learn a couple things as we grow up, because that's our responsibility to not only the next generation, but to ourselves, to our families, and ultimately to the next, like I said, to the next generation, where we want to leave the world in better hands than when we came in, right? That's kind of what it's about. That's the responsibility that we possess as individuals and as humans. And so we want to be about inclusiveness as well, like bringing us all in together to have these conversations. I know modeling empowered narratives, it kind of has this rap where I've heard people say, well, is it just centered around men mental health? Yeah, a lot of us, especially with us all being an all men crew, I can see how it would convey that message. But these are things, I think these are a lot of things that just society deals with. Some of the conversations that we have with are just all human problems, all society problems, all individual problems, like baseline problems that we're dealing with. It just might be a little bit different here and there, but we are all dealing with some of the similar issues. And so we want to be about inclusion. We want to be about acceptance. We want to be about gender equality. We want to be about, destigmatizing all the things that has held society back and its people, to chase not only not only just be unique, but being unique to themselves, but also working for the collective betterness of one another as humans. And I think a lot of that is society taught, and there's a lot of it that, over the times we've kind of strayed away from humans, and just we have a lot of things in terms of technology and its advancements, but we haven't really invested in humans as we should, or as time has went on. So, and so we want to be about inclusion. We want to be about acceptance. We want to be about creating a platform where people can come be their authentic selves, right? Including the people, the LGBTQ plus community, and all of those things, like, including the women in on our podcast, right? To get their perspective, because they have a different outlook on a lot of things, right? But it's about just that conversation. It's about just that willingness, that openness to not only change, but to hear one another, and to hear one another for what they're really saying and not what we think they're saying. And I think those are the things that can help us elevate in our society. So with that being said, we hope that we can continue to bring you guys great content through our dialogues in this podcast. And we hope to make a difference in our communities, one conversation at a time. I say it's a thing that's going to take change, or it's going to a thing that's going to take time. Like, change happens over years of constant work, but just because we face with the harsh reality of where the world is at right now doesn't mean that it cannot change, that it cannot be unlearned, that it cannot be undone. And I know we trick ourselves into thinking that, we can't work for collectively for the betterment of ourselves and other people, but we can, right? It doesn't take anything away from other people take anything away from us to help other people and help ourselves as well. In a lot of ways, if we help ourselves, we are able to give more, right? And then they are able to do the same, and it's kind of like a domino effect in terms of contagious positive energy. So we hope that you guys continue to support us. Make sure that you subscribe, like, comment, share your favorite podcast. We have we're on season 2. A lot of our season 2 episodes are on the YouTube platform now, and it will be on a YouTube platform moving forward. But we do have a season 1 where we talk about a lot of great things that is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you haven't done that, make sure you check that out as well. So make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and those things help us kind of elevate ourselves. And after this season, being able to keep giving you guys great content, and it helps us motivate us to want to give more to our communities and to ourselves. And this is a collective thing, and we want to just do this together. So if you can just get the message from us and from whoever it's from, that's the most important thing to us. So that being said, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Modeling Empire Narratives. I hope that this has been a great introduction in terms of like what we are about and what we want to do and just kind of like our mission moving forward. And we hope that people can hop on board and we just one person at a time, one conversation at a time, and one step at a time. But it does take our action as well. Have a good one.